Continuing our veteran content series, we're going to talk about gearing. That's right. This is, get ready for it, Stat Talk. That and more on this episode of the Escape Podcast for Star Wars The Old Republic. Our broadcast astromech today is EPC 377. And playing alongside me, the biggest fan of Stat Talk ever is Seema. Hi, Seema. How's it going?
Hi, Max. I just want to let everyone know that Max has promised to go through his stats only a lot.
It goes up a little bit each time. But in the pre-show, I meant to say I'll keep it to a minimum, and I accidentally said medium. So it's just going to go up a little bit.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about stats. But let me, before we go there, I'll say what I've been doing this week in SWTOR, which is starting with MFN. We went and did Eternity Vault, which we did have a couple of people that hadn't done Eternity Vault before, which is always cool. We had 12 or 13 people, so I was a little bit worried about the council fight going in, but it was no trouble at all.
It was
because we
smoked it
because we were short, and then we had some people playing on alts and some people playing, that had never been there before, but it was no problem. So it was no problem. It was a very fun night. And tonight we had on our ops night, we went into veteran mode Ravagers. The first couple of bosses gave us no trouble at all, but then the third boss, Toric, Max, he's grinding our gears.
I'm just looking at, I wasn't even saying anything. Just looking at my stats. But yeah, Torque.
Yes. So Torque he's winning. He's winning. Well, actually it's not him that's winning. It's his array of helpers.
Yeah.
So the little mechanic where you have to send the droid out to repair a console, it seems like it's a really small window of timing to get it out there and get the console repaired before it gets killed by the ads, specifically the one called Shoots Lasers.
Or by me.
Or by Max.
Is the case, maybe. It was an astromech. What was I going to do?
Right.
I kicked it out the airlock. It was only once.
But it was a fun night. It went really fast. We found out at the end of the night we had done 12 or 15 pulls, just boom, 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 boom. I mean, it's a short fight, which is good.
We were changing our strat up, and I mean, by the end, we were getting consoles repaired. Then we just need to pull the rest of it together.
Yep.
And
I think we'll get that because to me, it's fun to keep trying and making little changes and do it again and again and again, especially on a short fight like this. It gets to be a long evening when it's a long fight, like we were doing in Scum and Villainy with Styrak, which the whole fight itself is like 15 minutes long. So when you go the whole 12 minutes in, and then something goes wrong, you get that kind of letdown feeling. But with Torque, it was a little bit different.
As Merle in the chat room mentions, it is good to let the Wookiee win. So
yes, good point.
It is appropriate. I did not even think of that. That is well played.
Let's see, what else have I been doing this week? Well, I mean, I've done a little conquest, but there's no surprise there. That's kind of typical for me. I haven't gotten over that yet. That's pretty much my week. We've been having warm weather too, so I guess I don't know if we're having fake spring.
Not me.
Or deceptive spring.
Yeah.
It's not real spring. I'm pretty sure about that.
It's spring. It's lies. It's the springtime of our lies.
Yes, the lies of spring. Anyway, yes. So how are things going with you, Max?
Doing well. It is cold in the Chicago area, and it's gonna be cold for the next week. It's in the 30s at night, and mostly the 40s. Maybe gets above 50 or up to 50 during the day. I'm still going outside because it's at least sunny. It's like spring sunshine. So there's that.
Mm-hmm.
In game news, I said this for the last 2 weeks. I really like Arsenal. I'm having a lot of fun with it, to the point where I was going to keep my commando as innovative ordnance and let the concentrated fire set stay on the commando, so I wouldn't have to move gear back and forth, because those are the two main DPS that I play when I switch sides. I couldn't take it. I switched my bars over, and I'm shoving my gear back and forth. I'm doing arsenal on both sides now. Look at this person has their Gamorrean companion out. Is that just to taunt me?
Mhm.
Malogic. I did not get a Gamorrean companion this year.
Well, did you see I've never noticed this character over here before that's practicing her lightsaber skills.
That is yeah, that's was she the top duelist in her class? I don't think she was.
Was she the
It's
top
Kira.
duelist in
Isn't
her
it? Isn't
class?
that Kira? Isn't that what Kira says?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I switched all that over. And then we've been focused a little bit on data crowns also here and there on various mandatory fun
That's
nights and
true.
guild activities.
Yeah. I
I've
did spend
realized,
some time doing the instanced one on Osis.
right, and I've not done that one yet. I've got to do that one. But of all of the old school ones pre expansion, I only have one more, and I don't even know why I don't have it. It's on Voss somewhere, so I got to go find out why I don't have it. But I've got
'Cause
everything
because nobody
of the old school
summoned
ones.
you to it yet.
Probably. So that's what I've been doing. Let's find out what the rest of the world's been doing in the news.
Now, an Imperial News Network report.
First up in the news, the PTS is down. I repeat, the PTS is down. I don't know if it'll come back up or not. I think it could, or it could not. So I'm not sure. They haven't announced when they're actually releasing the next patch. I think they could go through another round of adjustments and updates and testing on Galactic Seasons, or they might just have enough feedback and just want to get their designs implemented and get it out there. Regardless, the PTS is down, and there is a wrap-up post that I believe Jackie put together, mostly talking about some of the questions that remained, mostly around the strongholds. The way it will be designed is it will be designed for you to not be able to get both strongholds in one galactic season. It will come back around and you'll be able to get the second one a second time, and it's sort of designed that way. Now, they did increase the number of tokens, so you'll be able to get 15 tokens, but the strongholds will strongholds will cost 8 tokens, so you only be able to get one because you will not have 16 tokens. They also did confirm that they will be increasing the cap for strongholds from 15 to 20.
Oh, good.
It is not intended that you're supposed to have a bunch of duplicates, even though some of us do because of the old school server merges. And there are not 20 strongholds in the game currently. So that should be plenty for everyone. And then someone also was asking if you'll be able to purchase those fleet apartments as guild strongholds. And the answer to that is currently no. They're only available for legacy. So that is that.
Also this week we got a new short story called Quite a Story to Tell. It's written by Caitlin Sullivan Kelly,
Oh, really?
who is a SWTOR narrative specialist.
Interesting. Have
Yeah,
we heard
so
that
she
name
wrote the
before?
story. I have not. That's a new name to me.
Fun.
It touches on it's short, so just a few minutes to read. So just
It
go
is
read it.
also
I'm
a
not gonna.
story.
Okay, and it's basically it's a conversation between Aaron Lanier and Satil Shan. So Aaron Lanier we met at the end of the last story beat. So
Right.
that's all I'll say about the story.
Right.
Um,
Yeah,
because
basically,
you know,
Aaron, in the cutscene, Aaron walks in, and then it goes to black, fades to black. This is what happens immediately after basically the conversation that happens immediately after.
yeah. So go check it out. You can find it just easily. Just go SWTOR.com. It's the top thing right now. So
Cool. Also in the news, the refund timer is changing. This is specifically the refund timer for things that you purchase off a vendor in the game. When you purchase things off the cartel market, the timer counts down even while you're logged out. When you purchase things off vendors in game, the timer only counted down while you were logged in. That is going to be changed to match what the cartel market does. And then the third timer is when you loot in an operation or in group content. That timer will still continue to only count down while you're logged in. They want to give you more of a margin so you can trade gear with the other people that were in the group with you. Why is this one timer changing? That of buying gear, buying things off of vendors, because some of you out there are using it in nefarious ways. Like,
Well, people were using this, yeah, they were using it to save their tech fragments until Kai got here on
right,
Thursdays.
like save much more than the cap, because what you would do is you would be at the cap of the tech frags, then you would go over to the vendor and you would buy some big ticket items, wait till Kai showed up, get back under the cap, then sell back your items to the vendor and
Mhm.
be back at the cap of tech frags.
So, I mean, I appreciate that they gave us their reasoning because sometimes they don't give us a reasoning, and then we're always like, "Why don't you tell us why you did?" Anyway, so I
Yep.
appreciate that they did that, but I also think why. I mean, what are they actually? Why are they? I mean, the people that are doing that are the ones that are playing a lot. So, are they saying we would prefer that you play less?
I don't know. I think the cap should be higher in general
Yeah,
myself as
but
well.
yes, so the raising the cap would have made more sense to me. Like, if they would have said, "Hey, look what players are doing because our cap is so low,
Right.
we could we could." But basically, what they did was the opposite. So now, if you're a person who was doing that, you either you're faced with a choice of not playing once you get to 10,000 fragments, or playing and
Wasting
losing,
fragments and
wasting fragments. So two poor choices for those players. I mean, I've been working around it okay, but I get it. I get that if you're doing a lot more, like say you pay PvP every day or you GSF every day.
well, Merlin in the chat room says there's a a change coming up that's expected, and I haven't heard about this change, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure where the information is coming from, but if this is true, that's it's interesting. Apparently, the those very rare mats that you can use to make the very high end augments
Mhm.
are soon to potentially become purchasable with tech frags. And in that case, when they're adding things to the game that people are going to want to save tech frags, something like that, where they would want to save tech frags for, what you'll have is people saving not just an extra couple thousand to get over the cap, but 100,000. And
Right.
in that way,
Yeah.
and then as soon as those materials come out, they would buy buy really unreasonable amounts of the materials and wreck the market. And so in that, if that kind of thing is coming out, that would be the kind of driving event that would make them want to make this kind of change sooner. That said, the point is still there that 10,000 tech frags is too low of a cap for us
It
all.
is too. I mean, we've talked about it before that we wouldn't mind. Anyway, yes. Raise the cap.
Raise the cap, save the clock tower. Tell me about refer a friend, Sina.
Okay, so another change, um, fairly sudden change, is the Refer a Friend program is currently slated to be discontinued as of April 27th, which is a couple weeks from today. Um, the reason that they gave, which again, I'm glad they gave a reason, was that, and I think it's a lot of people see this, is that it wasn't really serving the purpose that they wanted it to serve, which was, a way for you to get your friends to come and play with you. But instead, it's been providing cartel coins to people who are already playing. So
Yeah.
they're discontinuing that. They want to put something in place, but they're still thinking about how it would work and how would they structure it so that it would have the desired effect and not have unintended effects. So good luck to them on that one. Um, and I'm sure they have numbers that tell them that once they started thinking about it, they needed to act quickly, and that's probably why they didn't give us much notice.
Yeah,
I'm thinking, hopefully, that's why.
this I thought was interesting. I because it for two reasons. One, I thought it was fine, and yes, I get their point, and I think they've got a good a good perspective there, and I appreciated that they talked about why. Then I went to the forums because I expected a bunch of people to be upset and posting nasty grams and strongly worded letters, and that's not the case. Almost
No, people
everyone
don't seem that yeah, they
in the
seem pretty fine with
forums
it.
are, I mean, a couple people are like saying, "Oh, I'm sad to see it go." A lot of people are saying, "Yeah, it was about time for it to go." Almost no one is having a big problem with it. I'm sure a couple of people are. The people that are the would probably only be the people that were abusing it, which were the people that would sit around on the fleet for all new players that would come in and say, "I'll offering 1,000,000 credits for you to put this code in, put this refer a friend code in," and sometimes they wouldn't even give you the 1,000,000 credits then, and that would be really frustrating for new players, and that kind of bad behavior that impacts new players in weird ways and ways they don't understand is really, really non-optimal. So this is in that vein of that kind of thing that could be changing for that reason as well.
Personnel with knowledge of Coronet City and surrounding areas
Coronet,
must report to their commanding officers at once.
Coronet, what's wrong with Coronet City? Apparently the fleet announcer has got some sort of problem with it. That said, that's the Refer a Friend program, and thumbs up to everybody being respectful and kind in the forums. Maybe they're under the watchful eye of Jackie, and everybody's everybody's on their
She's
best
working her magic. Her magic
best
is getting
behavior.
through. Yeah.
It's like, what about guild and community news, Seema? What is going on? I know we've been talking about this, but what's up on Fridays? Friday.
So Friday this week is going to be achievement nights with BC and Kehohu. They have planned out what they're going to do on Friday. I think it has to do with killing some targets that take a group, and they might also be doing some PvP killings. But basically, what they're doing is they're working towards achievements, particularly the ones that are just easier and more fun to do in a group. So that's this Friday. We now have a repeatable schedule that goes like this every month. The first Friday in the month, Master Mode Flashpoints. The second Friday in the month, Hard Mode Ops Training. Third Friday in the month, this Achievement Night. Fourth Friday of the month is Mega, which is monthly epic guild activity. And if there is a fifth Friday in a month, then we'll do something wild and crazy, or possibly take a break. But that's the setup for Friday nights. And we still have MFN on Tuesdays and Ops nights on just about every other night. But yeah, that's our Fridays.
Cool.
Just show up on Friday and there'll be something fun to do.
Also, I want to continue to shout out to our guild for doing tons of fun things in all of the other games as well. We've got teams that are making ahead of the curve in World of Warcraft. We've got a bunch of people playing the new ESO content. And I just heard that ESO just announced their own version of Galactic Seasons Battle Pass kind of concept, which I find quite interesting.
That is interesting.
Everybody's doing it.
It's a trend.
I guess it's the new hotness that everybody's got to have a bat. I was watching some YouTube video for something, and the YouTuber was sponsored by a mobile game, and his little 2-minute mention of the mobile game was all about the battle pass in this little mobile strategy game. Whatever. Okay, I guess everything's about the battle pass these days. Everybody got in trouble for having like gambling loot boxes, and those are all outlawed now. So battle pass is the new Skinner box. What else we have going on in AIE is our Nomads channel in particular. I have been spending time in a couple of our Nomads divisions. We're doing some guild stuff in Valheim. We've got a Valheim server that's pinned in our Valheim channel that a bunch of people have been doing. Let's see, we had a boss night last week, and we killed some more of the bosses. I haven't been doing it much with many people just yet, but I've been spending a lot of time in No Man's Sky. No Man's Ski, as I like to call it. I might start streaming that a little bit for the guild, and I think we are going to get some guild things going on in there because you can do, it's on a small level, but you can do multiplayer in No Man's Sky these days. You can do group missions and things like that. And I'm building a bunch of bases, and I'm building this underwater base, and I want people to come see it. So
Yeah.
that's what I like. And then I heard we got a couple of people starting up the latest Diablo season. So tons of good stuff going on in there. Oh, and I just saw Lantheris created a book club channel for fantasy sci-fi books.
Yes.
And
yes.
Seema was posting in that channel. And I was like, it's getting late for the podcast. Where's Seema? And I see like Seema's typing. Just posting a bunch of stuff in that channel already. I am going to post a ton of things in there. As everyone knows, I consume a lot of sci-fi fantasy content. I'm listening to some Alastair Reynolds right now, and I just finished the 4th book in the Bobaverse. Since I've been playing No Man's Sky and Star Wars quite a bit, I like books that match the content. So either like I've done Star Wars books or it's just space books in general fit with the space content. So that's been fun. That's what I've been doing. So join us in AIE-guild.org and check out in our Discord. A ton of things going on across all of our divisions.
I mean, aside from all the video games, we also have people playing board games and Dungeons and Dragons, which is fairly new for us. I personally am a newbie D&D player on one of our games.
Right. And that's been going spectacularly from what I can tell.
Swimmingly.
And then we've got the board game group as well. Seek that out. We had a bunch of people that were very interested. It only runs once a month, so you got to catch it. Get in the channel and ask about it. You don't need any experience. You don't need to worry about what it takes to play. They will set you up. They will show you how Tabletop Simulator works. Very easy on-ramp to check out some of the latest, hottest, coolest board games. Shout out to the chat room. We got a bunch of people in there, including Merlin, we believe, of Merlin's Guides, who we will talk about again tonight. So very great to see you, new player, Lord Vader, who I think just got one of their first characters in the guild tonight. Great to have all of you, and then a lot of the usual suspects, as Force Chuckle Galahad. Thanks everybody for coming in and hanging out. As we said, we will talk to you a bit after the show and the post show as well. But now we're going to talk about vet modes a bit more. We started this series last week. We're probably going to continue it with at least one more in the series next week. This one tonight is about vet mode gear, grinding our gears. And in the immortal words of Peter Griffin, it might sound a little bit like this.
Another thing that grinds my gears is when I can't find the droids I'm looking for.
Yeah, me too. What gives with that?
And that's what really grinds my gears.
You know what grinds my gears? Grinding for gear. But sometimes we need to. Sometimes we need to because we're doing vet mode content. And if we are doing vet mode content, you do need to take a little bit of extra time to check out your gear. As you start doing the harder content, you need to tune things up. So last week we talked about rotations. How do you ensure that you're getting the most out of your class and the damage it can do?
Duty,
We
honor.
mentioned a couple
The
things
Imperial Navy
as part of
secures
that.
our
There are
empire's
some
dominance
aspects
across the
of
far corners the
gearing
galaxy. Reports
that are
to recruitment
critical
staff for
to
more
making your
information.
rotation work as well. So let's get into some of that. But to start it off, things are a little bit complicated with gearing right now. I wouldn't say complicated, but there's a split. In order to make all of the old content relevant, everything except from an operations perspective, we're just talking about operations right now. Everything except Duxon level syncs you to level 70. And when it does that, it gives you, if you look at your stats, here we go, stat talk, your mastery and your power then get pushed to a cap, and they do not go above that cap. So when we talk about tuning up your gear here, we're going to talk about it in two different ways. And a lot of times you're going to want to focus in general on pushing the secondary stats, and that's alacrity, crit, and we'll talk about accuracy in particular, but not adding extra power or mastery because they're capped. They're capped in everything except Duxon right now. So unless you're doing vet mode or master mode Duxon, tuning to get more power or using the power adrenal, those things do not help you. So that's one of the twists. We'll mention some things back and forth as we go. A little bit on the stats. We'll start there, Seema, because I know you like it a little bit. Not too much. I said I'll keep it to a medium. First up in the stats, number one stat, most important stat. Anybody? Accuracy, at least for DPS. not for healers or tanks. But for DPS, for me, number one stat, your accuracy must be 1590 or above. Now, when you're going to try to get close on some of these stats, most of these stats, especially accuracy and alacrity, you want to get it to the number that the guide, whatever guide you're looking at, tells you to get to, or slightly above. And you can go way above. It's not going to hurt anything, except you're wasting some of those stats that you could have for something else. So if 1590 is the exact number where you get to, and look, see, my character is exactly at 1590 on my accuracy, and my accuracy is exactly 110%. So weapon accuracy is 100%, and then the bonus, which makes the ranged accuracy 110%. Perfect. If I went up to 1600 accuracy, that's fine. It's going to be perfectly fine. It doesn't get me anything else from an accuracy perspective. And then that extra 10 points I could have used in something else like alacrity or crit. So that's why they say, like, 1590 is your accuracy number. And if you can get it, close, and usually I don't have it exact. I just happen to have a couple of the enhancements are sitting around, and I actually put them in a spreadsheet and figured out which ones are the ones I saved that would get me exactly to 1590. For alacrity, I got close to what I needed. It was a little bit over. It's like over by like 10 or 20. But that's fine. I don't care. And maybe I'll get a slightly better mix of enhancements for that at some point too. So for DPS, accuracy number one. Then number two, and we'll leave tanks out for a second because now things get a little bit more similar across healers and DPS. You'll want to be looking at alacrity and crit. Those are the other two that you're really sort of tuning for. Let's talk about alacrity. What does alacrity do for you, Seema? Why do you care about alacrity?
Alacrity makes it so that your abilities can fire faster, and it shortens the global cooldown.
Yep. That's all it does. It's a little bit faster. Your channeled abilities channel a little bit faster. The global cooldown in particular is the interesting mechanic. What you want to get to is the global cooldown is typically about 1.5 seconds. If you've got enough alacrity, you can get it to 1.4 seconds. That's mostly what most classes need to get it to, 1.4 seconds. Depending on your spec and what you've got going on, like Arsenal, for example, it does well with extra accuracy. In the old days, some classes did not do well going down to 1.3 seconds. It would sort of like get the timing of your rotation off. Our Arsenal does well with 1.3, so I have a lot of alacriity. I have 2381 alacrity. I think like 2375 gets me to 1.3 seconds global cooldown, which means I fit in one extra ability out of every 14 abilities. Doesn't sound like a lot, but over the course of a long boss fight, that adds up. It's a little bit, it's a little bit more. Same thing on the healing, right? Seema, you would definitely want to get to 1.4 typically, right?
Yeah, there's really two options there's more than two options, but yeah, 1.4 on the global cooldown or 1.3, because there's enough in your stat budget to go to 1.3 global cooldown if that suits your play style. And the reason I put it that way is because I am not so twitchy of a player that I feel like I would take advantage of that 1/10 of a second. So I hang out at the 1.4 global cooldown, and then I put the extra alacrity I put in crit then.
Right. The extra sort of stat budget.
So there's two reasons for that. One is the twitchiness that I mentioned. It's like I don't have super fast reflexes to begin with. But the other thing is you get in a groove with your
Yeah.
global cooldown. And so it would be hard for me to learn to change my groove really to 1.3 because yeah, I feel like I would not there would be no advantage because I wouldn't take advantage. And so I just hang out at 1.4. And then that leaves me extra stuff for other things. One thing, Max mentioned that healers don't typically have to get accuracy, and that's pretty
Resource
much true, but
rationing will
some healers will
remain
put some
until
accuracy
victory
in,
is achieved.
especially if you're going for the 1.4 global cooldown for a couple of reasons. One is if they don't want to miss on interrupts.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is in some situations where you're pushing progress, like doing something that's above the level of your team and the healers have to help out with DPS, then it's nice if you don't miss.
Right.
Me, though, what I do is I do the easiest of both those things is I aim for 1.4 global cooldown and then I put everything in crit. I don't have any accuracy on my gear. But there are healers out there and that's the reasoning for having accuracy.
Right. We didn't say that explicitly, but even for DPS, the reason you want 1590 and 110 is because then you have 0 misses, except the sort of the built-in misses of like offhand weapons or something like that. Missing at all is a huge waste, huge impact on DPS, and a huge mechanics impact if you need to be like doing things like interrupts. Missing an interrupt in a fight that you needed to interrupt, like the queen, the hive of the queen of the mountain of the hive of the queen. You miss that interrupt, and the fight's over. You're dead.
See, if I have to interrupt something, I'm way more likely to miss the interrupt because I didn't target them in time and then actually hit the interrupt than I am
For you as a healer,
to
because
miss.
you're going to be
Yeah.
targeting people.
Yeah.
You're going to be targeting
Yeah.
me, right? Right?
Yeah.
Right, Seema?
But a really, really good player could take advantage of it. That's just not me.
Right. But for DPS and tanks have a slightly different scenario.
Yeah. Yeah.
They get
For
their
sure.
accuracy pumped up. They don't need to stack accuracy.
Yeah.
But for DPS that need to be doing these kinds of interrupts, we're probably like fighting the mob and shooting the mob that we need to be interrupting and we need to be watching, and we need to not miss or the group wipes. But yeah, so we're talking here about sort of we're getting into a topic here around stat budget too. So if you're say we want to get this much alacrities, if I'm looking at my piece of gear here, we're almost done with stats. Looking at my piece of gear here, if I only need 405 accuracy and I put a piece in that's got like 485 accuracy or alacrity, this alacrity enhancement, then that other 80 alacrity is now not going into power or endurance, because there's a stat budget for where these stats are coming from. There's sort of a pool. Now that pool can change also. So here, let me show you a resource. You want to get into this in some detail. There's a spreadsheet out there. It's called Smarty SWTOR's spreadsheet. In the Theory Crafters, there's a whole bunch of these sheets that say, here, let's look at some DPS enhancements for alacrity. Here's all of the Nimble Superior enhancements for alacrity. 80, ADR1 through ADR20. Then there's the Superior Nimble, the Superior Barrage. Here's what you're looking at is the pool is the total number of stats divided up between endurance, power, and alacrity, all just on those different versions of Superior Nimble. What you want is to find the mods that have the highest pool and then have the right amount of alacrity, because then that means the rest is going to go into power, which you won't use except for Duxon, but you'll want it there anyway. What you'll also find, and it'll be recommended, you look at the guide and they'll say, go get, Nimble Superior, go get the Superior enhancements, do not get Barrage enhancements. And why is that? Because if you look here, all the Superior enhancements have the least amount of endurance possible. So DPS gear, you're going to be going after all of the kinds of gear pieces and all of the mods and enhancements and armorings that have the least amount of endurance possible, because that means the rest of the stat budget, the rest of the stat pool is all on power and alacrity or power and crit or wherever else you need it, or on accuracy, and not wasted in endurance, because you got healers. Your healers are going to heal you up. There could be rare cases in special fights. This might be in like nightmare mode progression where you might need a little bit of extra endurance. You would probably handle that a different way. So if I look down here, if I look in barrage, if I put this superior barrage enhancement 80 in, it's got 431 endurance on it. That means there's over like 150 extra endurance that I now don't get as power or alacrity. That's wasted on me. That would be a big waste. So as you look at the guides and as they say, go get the superior enhancements, go get the adept superior mods. That's why they're telling you to do that. And in the guides for DPS, mostly they'll tell you to go get superior adept enhancements 80R 1, 3, 4, 5, and 2 in that order. And why is that? Because those are the ones with the highest pool of the highest stat pool and the amount of crit that you can get out of that stat pool. So that's okay. That was deep stat talk. I hear Seema typing in the background, probably sending a worded post to. Can I get on somebody else's podcast?
You have way too much alacrity, Max.
In my mouth, in my
No.
brain of talking. But this is it. This is what
Yeah.
you're looking for. This is the stat talk. You're just trying to get the right balance, and
I don't
you're
know,
trying
Galahad.
to.
I don't know why there's so many.
You
I mean,
could.
it's
I don't know either.
tanks do want maybe a different arrangement, but basically, I look for the same mods that Max just called out.
Yeah, nobody wants those, because tanks enhancements are all going to be the shield and absorb enhancements, and tank mods are all going to be the warding mods, which are the high defense. Nobody in the game wants
I don't know.
these DPS enhancements besides the
Security
superiors,
notice.
the adepts on the mods, and the nimble superiors.
I know why they exist in the game. It's because it's so that you can have those and upgrade to the better ones.
And right. And it's so that the people who do create these kinds of spreadsheets and do the math have something to do.
Yeah.
So this
yeah,
go ahead.
when you get gear out of your various crates and sources and drops and stuff, it's going to have whatever 306 mod in it that it has, and then you just keep an eye out for one of these better mods and you replace them as they turn. That's what I do. Replace them as they turn up. I don't go looking for them. But when they turn up, I will plunk one in.
Yeah. And this is also how I do gear sorting when when my inventory fills up. I have a note page in OneNote that says, go through all the gear pieces that you got. You got a bunch of these shot tech, weapons, guns that dropped. You only want ones that are 306, and then look, and if they're adept superior 1 through 5, R 1 through 5, then keep them. Otherwise get rid of them. If they're I made a couple notes of kind of which sets to look for. It's a little more complicated on the alacrity and the accuracy, because you could use any of these 1 through 20 if you wanted to hit that target exactly. Because remember, it's 285 endurance, but you could put a 427 together with a 394 together with a 403 and get to that exact number you need for your alacrity, maybe. So I keep more of them in alacrity and accuracy. That's how I got to 1590, because I had a bunch of them sitting around that were just the right accuracy ones. But it way narrows it down if you look at the ones that you're supposed to be getting for your class. All right, that's done with stat talk. So let's talk about what's next. Amplifiers. Amplifiers are important to tune up your gear to match your spec and your rotation and your class. When I switched from Innovative Ordnance to Arsenal, I needed to switch all my amplifiers over from periodic the dot periodic something the amplifier which increased dot damage over time damage ticks. I need to switch it over to armor penetration. So armor penetration says kinetic and energy damage ignores a portion of the target's armor, which means you do more damage pound for pound if you're doing kinetic and energy damage because you're getting through the boss armor. All bosses have some amount of armor. In this case, special case, because of the way Arsenal works, almost every ability except one is kinetic and energy. So all of your damage except one thing, which is the dot off of your priming shot, is kinetic and energy. So great. Armor pen, big benefit to you. If I still had the periodic intensity, thank you, Merlin. If I still had periodic intensity on me as Arsenal, it would be a big waste because I have only one dot cooking typically, or one or two minor dots ticking typically, as opposed to Innovative Ordnance, which is a dot spec. A big chunk of your damage comes off of dots, so you go with the amplifier that increases and synergizes with your spec, your set, what your class is doing. So what are the amplifiers you have, Seema? I'm using all armor pen right now.
I don't even know what the amplifiers are that I should go for. I am not like you. I do not see the point of messing with amplifiers.
It is, it's like 0.5% kind of differences in damage, and same thing with the healing. Healing, as we know, is more about making the right decisions than it is about healing 10,005 versus 10,000.
10,003.
Yeah. Chat room is asking dot. We keep saying like dot and hot. Dot stands for damage over time. So it's an ability. You shoot the target, and instead of I shoot you with a missile and the boss takes 500 damage, instead it's the boss takes 50 damage, and the boss gets, you'll see the abilities that say it. The boss will start. You will have a burning effect for the next 10 seconds and take another 50 damage per second for the next 10 seconds. That's damage over time. Same thing with healing over time. If I just do one big heal on you all at once, that's a straight up heal. If I put a heal over time ability on you where I cast it on you, and once every a second you get a little bit of healing over time, that's hot. That's healing over time. So Merlin is saying in certain situations you can get 6 to 8% healing output if they're all completely optimized. But so for vet mode progression,
yeah,
definitely in nightmare modes or master
if we were
modes,
doing
we would definitely
any
need
fights where we would have won if we had 6% extra healing, then I would kick myself.
Yeah, we are not
But
typically up
that's not
against
where we are. Yeah.
A healing barrier. So that's amplifiers, and that's why you look at the guide, and the guide will say these are the amplifiers you want. That's why. And it'll be certain amplifiers for tanks. We'll be protecting them from a particular kind of damage. Each class has amplifiers that synergize best. How do we know which amplifiers synergize best? Well, again, those people with the spreadsheets, they did simulations and math, and they said, you'll get 6% if you do this amplifier versus getting only 5% more if you do this amplifier. So that's how that breaks out. Sir Galahard asks, is burst the opposite of dot? When you look up the specs, that's the way the specs will typically break down. They'll say burst spec versus dot spec. It's not exactly. It's sustained over sustained fights. It's different. It's direct direct damage is different than dot damage. Burst is more focused around, do you have sets of abilities that line up so that you can do a whole bunch of damage in a short amount of time? That might be a very bursty spec. You might have like burst windows though. So you can still have a non-dot spec that does very even sustained damage that isn't very bursty. And so it's kind of different that way. Burst gets very important in PvP more than anything else. There are fights in PvE where burst damage is important, where you would be like saving up abilities that you would line up. So when like if a certain ad comes up or a certain phase happens, then you expend all of those abilities at once to make the shield go down on the boss. It's much more interesting in PvP because what you want is you want to DPS people evenly around the group, and once you get somebody kind of low enough, you hopefully then you can stun them, and then everybody unleashes their bursts and gets them from 30% to 0 instantly. That's what you're trying to do with burst. You're trying to kill the player within the window where they are locked down with a crowd control ability. Okay, that's amplifiers and a bunch of side comments. Then now we're confusing the issue. Bring it back around. What's next? Gear sets. Gear sets, and that's why we're on this area of the fleet. Your gear set and your set bonus is the other thing that's very important from a gearing perspective for you to look at. And when you look at the BIS recommendation for your class and spec, that's best in slot. What those kinds of recommendations typically say is, for each of the slots, what's the best piece of gear that you should be putting into that slot? So best in slot, or your BIS for your class in Star Wars, The Old Republic, is almost all 6 pieces of your preferred set bonus set and 1 piece of amplified champion for DPS. Actually, for most classes. So the sets are pretty well tuned up. You're not like mixing sets in very many cases. There might be a special case where you might mix some sets. I think there's some certain tank scenarios and some other edge cases where you might mix sets. Almost always you're going after your best in slot set. For Arsenal Mercenary, it is Apex Predator. For Innovative Ordnance, it is Concentrated Fire. For all of the DPS Sork classes, it's Gathering Storm. What set are you sporting currently, Seema?
I still use concentrated fire.
Hey,
Well, actually, I
Seema,
use
what are
concentrated
you
fire.
wearing?
I use concentrated fire here on this merc,
Mhm.
but then on my trooper, I have tech medic. I mean, I think they're pretty close. I think the other set is the preferred now, but I just kept my concentrated fire. I like it.
So where are we finding out? Again, where are the people who've done the math? Where are they posting these sets that we should be going after? And where's this information coming from? There is a Theory Crafter Discord. It's pinned in our AIE SWTOR Discord channel. You can get to it in a couple other places. I think there's posts on the official forums where people have put it, and on the Reddit. Those Theory Crafter groups, there's people in those channels. They've got pin posts in each of the sub channels dedicated to the classes and specs. That's where they've sort of done the work, and that's where they discuss if anything changes or new sets come out or a patch comes out that changes an ability's damage. They'll do some more investigation to make sure it's still the best. Here's a site that we also have pinned. This is a guild called Stroke My Wookie. And they just have a really nice post in their public forums where they go, like once a week, they go to the Theory Crafter Discord and they copy in each of the pin posts out of the Discord, just in one post in their forums, all of the best in slot stuff. This is what I tend to go to. I go to their guild pinned post here because they've done a good job here. So here we were saying, what's the healer, the preferred set bonus like for the healer? Here they've got their little section. It says Empowered Restorer. Your tacticals should be one for all. We'll talk about tacticals in a second. And your amplifier should be force harmonization. So there you go. And let's go down to, and this is here we've got on Mercenary. Arsenal is Apex Predator, as they say. And here's where they're saying what your alacrity should be for 1.4 global cooldown or 1.3. Innovative ordnance, concentrated fire. Your amplifier should be periodic intensity. So this is where we're getting the information. It's the theory crafter. It's this people that have done the work to try to figure this kind of stuff out. And it's not just the people in the theory crafter Discord. There's various people, you know, like Merlin's guide. That's another one we go to. So Merlin's we talked about last week. Merlin's is the one I'll go to when I really want to put it all together. Here you can go and it's laid out very well. I can go to Bounty Hunter. Last week we talked about rotation. So here I can go Arsenal Mercenary. I can see gearing in 6.0. This is all sort of laid out there with even getting to what your alacrity should be for 1.3 global cooldown or 1.4 seconds of global cooldown. And even a little bit more explicit about where your extra point should go. And then Merlin's is really good about, as we talked last week, about the rotations. So, in fact, I jumped on Merlin's earlier tonight because I did not have an AoE tactical for my Arsenal spec. So let's talk about that next. Tacticals. Tacticals. Do you switch tacticals much as a healer, Seema?
No, I don't. I mean, just like we were talking about with accuracy, there are situations where one of two tacticals is better than the other, but I just usually well, actually I do occasionally. If we're doing the kind of content where I think I might die, I will put on my Life Ward tactical.
Yeah, so Life Warden gives you that sort of, it's only once per fight, but it gives you a big huge oh crap moment heal.
Yeah.
So our tanks will use it from time to time, especially when we're in a very bursty fight. I don't ever use Life Warden, but we've even switched it out for DPS once in a while.
But I mean, that's usually when we're in a situation where we're still learning a fight. The fight's taking longer than it should because mechanics and moving around and switching targets and all that.
And that's a key word, what Seema just said there, because of that situation. And if you read these guides and if you look at the recommendations, best in slot, what is the best in slot tactical, you will often see it's this one for this, it's this one for this, and situationally, you might use this one or this one. What does that mean? It means for certain fights in certain cases, look at what this tactical does. It might be really interesting for that situation.
But I do have both of the tacticals that they recommend in the Theory Crafter Discord, but I tend to just put one of them on and then stick with it.
Yep. I switch back and forth between an AoE and a single target DPS tactical. I have two of them for concentrated fire and innovative ordnance that focus on making the dots tick more, and then I have two different ones for my my mercenaries arsenal build, like this one, primed ignition. Priming shot causes its target to burn. Blazing bolts, heat seeker missiles, and tracer missiles all tick the damage. And the subtext is even the fire is flammable.
I mean, the cool thing about tacticals is they're easy to get.
Right.
They're super easy to get. So there's no reason not to have the one that's best for your class and your spec, or a couple of them. Or I mean, I think I have like 8 tacticals in my bags right now. Because why not?
I was, as I said earlier tonight, I was missing the recommended AoE tactical for Arsenal Merc. I ran to the fleet. I checked my bounty hunter gear vendor here, set gear vendor, And the tactical I needed was sitting right here on the vendor.
Mhm.
Thermonuclear.
And, those tech
thermonuclear
fragments that you're trying to get rid of
fusion.
anyway because the cap is too low?
So bang, I was able to just get it and be done. Many classes, not all, many classes have their best in slot set on these vendors as well, but
Yep.
not all of them.
Not
There
all of
are a
them.
handful of sets, and it's not necessarily the best set. It happens to be if you want to be an Arsenal Merc that only drops from more rare places, either as operations drops or showing up on Kaizyken or as random pieces in a couple other caches. But you can't just like go up to these guys and pay tech frags and buy your whole set all at once. But yes, so check first as you're going and trying to get your set. Check first on these vendors to see if they do have your best in slot set, because you can get it here and not have to just like wait, long time over time to slowly get it. One other thing. If you're buying a piece off of Kaizyken, make sure you're wearing full 306. Otherwise,
Mhm.
if you're
I've made that
naked,
mistake
it'll be
before.
270 gear off of
Right.
Kaizyken.
Right.
Those other guys over on the other side that sell the full sets, those are empty shells. You're gonna need to put the mods in them, so they don't come with mods. Kaizyken's pieces do come with mods.
So, in case this sounds like a lot to digest, I go by that, the thing about how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time. Sort of like get your gear to 306, then get your correct set. At some point after that, start worrying about min-maxing your mods and wait, maybe after you're on a team that's going to be doing progression rating.
Right.
You don't need to go right to the spreadsheet that Max was showing in order to be successful. That's an enhancement when you get ready for it.
Right. Tune it up slowly over time. We sort of pointed out the couple things that are critical, like the accuracy, getting your set, because that might even change how your class feels a little bit, and your tactical. Do those early. Tuning up and quote unquote min-maxing your stats to get them exactly how they should be. That's a longer term thing, and you can do that over the long term. And you don't have to figure it out. You don't have to do a bunch of math. You don't have to simulate it yourself and try every possible combination. Go to the guides. Go to Merlin's site. Just see what it says. Hey, I should get concentrated fire. All right, I'll just go over to the vendor. Oh, look, here's a full set of concentrated fire. Let me just get a bunch of tech frags and I'll just put on concentrated fire. Done.
Yeah. It might take you a few weeks to get the tech frags together, but it's something to do.
Other people have done the hard work, so take advantage of
Yeah.
it. The only
And
thing,
when you want to learn your rotation, go to Merlin's site because
yeah,
he has all the pictures of the icons, which makes it so much easier. Separate articles for the imp side and the pub side, so you don't have to be thinking, well, what ability is it on my character?
right.
So.
When especially when I'm playing a class that's new to me, I will go to like Merlin's site here, and I will screenshot and cut and paste like the opener rotation or the priority rotation, or like move it over, so I've got it
Any
up on my
suspicious
second
activity
monitor,
must be
and out of the
reported
corner
to
of my eye,
station
I'm just keeping an eye
security
on it
at
while I'm
once.
learning the rotation. So that's a way to do it too.
Yeah, because we're visual people.
Yep.
It's good to know the names of the abilities, but it's better to know what they look like on your button.
Yep. And we talked last week about how I line it up on my buttons. So even if I don't know what all the things do, I know roughly what's higher priority. The only other thing we didn't really talk about, but does count in terms of stats and gear, is consumables, stims and adrenals in particular. Stims more important than adrenals. Adrenals again are situational, but stims, they're depending on how look. So look at the guide. The accuracy in particular may require you to use a proficiency stim. That's when you will want to potentially keep an eye on if the way your class is laid out. Like for me here, I need 1590 accuracy to be able to have 110. If you look at me right now, my stim has dropped off. My proficiency stim is no longer running. I am down to 108.72% accuracy. I will be missing on bosses. I will be doing quite a bit lower DPS unless I have that stim running. So I have a stack of those stims. I have a biochem that makes those stims. I always run that stim. Why? I think we mentioned this. That in particular, a lot of people get to 1590, including that proficiency stim in their stat mix, so that in certain situations, situationally, when they don't need 100% accuracy, they can switch to a different stem, like PvP. You don't need 100, 110. You don't need 1590 accuracy in PvP. So rather than like switch out all my gear or like take off gear pieces, I just switch to the other, the attack, whatever the versatile
So
stem.
PvP isn't capped?
It's the damage you do to a player is bosses are like 2 levels higher. That's why you need to get to 110 to be able to make
No,
sure
no,
that
I'm
you're.
not. I know I'm not talking about accuracy. I'm talking about mastery and power.
Uh,
Like, why would
the
you
endurance.
use?
Well, you want
Oh,
the
the
endurance
endurance.
and the crit, and
Oh, I see.
the power is bolstered slightly differently.
Because I was going to say, even as a healer, that the stem I use all the time is the proficient one, because not that
Because there's a secondary effect
the
on it, right?
not that the accuracy is of much use to me, because it's a small amount considering I don't have any other accuracy on my gear. But I might as well have a little extra crit because the other stem, the mastery power stem, doesn't give me anything
Right,
until you get to Duxon.
right. Same thing on adrenals. If you're doing Duxon content, then the attack adrenal, which will increase your power by 1005, is useful and important. But the power again is capped, so you might be using a different adrenal to do that little bit of burst. And adrenals you only use a couple times during the fight. You probably want to pop it as part of your opening rotation, and then you might be popping it after the cooldown happens one more time during the fight because it has a 3-minute cooldown. So you're only usually getting it in twice. So there you go. Got a little bit of a stat talk in. Got a little bit of a discussion of the gear. Look at the guides. That's what they're there for. That's what these awesome people have done the hard work for. But if you're gonna get in, and this is only at vet mode and above. If you're doing story mode content, go naked. We've done story mode operation content where we've had a person or two accidentally being naked through like halfway through the operation, and then opening up their character sheet, wondering why their DPS seems a little bit low, and realizing that they don't have any gear equipped. But it's only a little bit low. It's not like you're doing 0 damage. So there's that. I did that in in vet mode, Dread Palace, and we couldn't. I wasn't doing as much damage as I expected on the first fight, and we had done all the trash. And what tipped me off was on the trash I wasn't pulling aggro. I was like, huh. I mean, you don't want to pull aggro. That's, when we get to fight mechanics, we'll talk about that. But on trash, when there's a whole bunch of mobs, the tanks can only taunt so many of them at a time. Once in a while you expect that you're going to pull aggro if I'm doing like a burst on a mob here or there. And I just wasn't pulling aggro on any of them. Like, what's going on? These tanks are awesome tonight. They're like, got aggro on everything. And I was like, oh, I'm naked. That's no good. So have gear if it's lower than vet mode, but then if you start some progression, these are the steps that you want to take. So there we go. Episode 2 in our latest vet mode series, things you want to start thinking about. We expect to probably do one more in this series. I think one more. And that is probably going to be what are the fight mechanics like? and how are they different between story mode versus vet mode? What are the kinds of things that you expect to see? And we'll give you some examples of where things really start to get different and why it's a chore or a battle or a challenge, a fun puzzle to learn the fights. There you go. Well, with that, I think we can take our EPC 377 droid and kick him out an airlock to broadcast this podcast to all of you. For links to what we're doing, for the notifications when they go out, when the podcast chat room goes live in the pre-show, you can follow me at Max the Gray on Twitter. And you can also see all of those show up in our guild Discord, aie-guild.org. That is where we post everything about the podcast and the guild. That's where everyone comes to join. We have guilds on Starforge, on the Republic, and the Imperial side. aie-guild.org. In the upper right, there's the link to our guild Discord. It's open to everyone. Our guild is open to everyone. We would love to have you come and play with us. And with that, we will talk to you soon.
Later, everyone.